It's your girl Aisha, aka Geek XX Chic, and I'm back with another review video for The Walking Dead. I am really sorry. I'm gonna be a little bit smiley and a little bit crazy in this one because I'm still reeling over the Richonne ILUs. That's the statement. That is the highlight of the season so far. I don't know what could top it. My Richonne heart is full. My crops are flourishing. The money is flowing in. My skin is clear. It is a beautiful day. That was great. But we'll get to that. We'll get to the Richonne stuff a little bit later. So for those of you who are not Richonne shippers, you don't have to watch me gush for too long. This review is for the recent episode 14, which was called Still Gonna Mean Something. And this was a very heavily character driven episode, but it felt really good. Like, they mixed it, in my opinion, very well with the action of the war stuff. But we really got some good character pieces, which is something that this show has always been built on, but it was in a way that was at a good pace and fulfilling and a lot more fun to watch than I think we've seen in some of the previous episodes of this season. So I found myself really engaged in the show, and I barely wrote down notes because I was really actually interested in what was going on and what was being said. Let's start with the stuff with Carol. Let's talk about Carol for a little bit, her journey in this episode. One of the first things I noticed from, actually, we've all noticed this since pretty much, I think, last season, going into this season with Carol and the dynamic with her and Henry. You know, we saw it before with her and the Look at the Flowers girl. Sorry, her name flew right out of my head. Carol, we all know that after she lost Sophia, which was really heartbreaking in season 2, she kind of put up some walls emotionally after that happened. She hardened up, which she had to, because this world that we live in, you know, in The Walking Dead, you know, that you could not afford to be soft, so to speak, in the sense of not being willing to make hard decisions and do tough stuff. And we watched Carol, like, in season 3 in particular, and into season 4, where she kind of went too far to the being hard part. We saw that, you know, Rick actually exiled her from the prison, but we saw her kind of swing really far to the not caring about people, and then she kind of came back when she came and rescued the group. But even then, we saw when she first came to Alexandria, all that stuff, Carol was still very much trying to find a good balance between keeping herself protected and being strong enough to protect herself and the people she cared about, but also being open to the idea that people are still around and she should still engage with them and have a human side. We saw her kind of slipping back and retreating into this place where Morgan is, and I think it's really interesting because I've said this in last season and previous episodes that Carol and Morgan very much mirror each other story-wise, as far as their journeys and how they've handled losing their children and how it's really changed them in this apocalyptic world. With Morgan, you know, he went from, you know, being all about his son, very benevolent, very kind, which was brought out in this episode when Rick was like, why did you save me when you didn't have to being right now where he is right now, where he's barely being able to see friend or foe, just wants everybody to die. So both of them had this whole, you know, back and forth about how to be in this world, but Carol's kind of come to a place where she's leveling out finally. You know, she withdrew in the beginning of, or in the middle of season 7, saying, you know, I don't want to be around anyone. And again, her reasoning was much like what we heard from Morgan this episode, where she was like, I know that eventually this pretty place with all these people living in Alexandria is just a lie. Eventually a herd's gonna happen, some bad people are gonna come, something's gonna happen, it's all gonna fall apart, so I'm not gonna even partake. I'm just gonna isolate myself and just, you know, let the world fall apart around me. And then Morgan, who was in a much different place at that point, he was in his Zen place of living by the stick, the blunt stick, not the pointy one. And he came and was like, no, you can't do that. Like, you have to remember, like, people are the reason we still do this. Like, you still need to have human connection. You still need to respect that life is still here and enjoy that while it's here, even if you know it's going to eventually end in death at some point. And so he kind of helped to pull her out of that, but now we see poor Morgan, you know, he allowed himself to be open again with Henry and with his brother, I cannot remember his brother's name, who died. Like, he really started to kind of embrace them again as sons and feel that fatherly connection again, only to have it ripped away from him and have that, you know, like that cold water splash to, you know, the realities of this world again. And I think the biggest difference between Carol and Morgan is that Carol's trauma was more around her whole life. I think when she came into this whole situation was that she was a wife, she was a mother, she was a woman who was also in an abusive relationship, so she was very diminished as a person, and she formed her entire identity around being a mother and a protector of Sophia. But when Sophia died and her husband was no longer there, Carol had to redefine herself as a person, and she rebuilt herself as a stronger person, and she described a better person than she was, but she also like embraced the people around her, you know, Rick and Maggie and all these different people who'd been in her life and to kind of help her and Daryl get through it and grow and get stronger. And she kind of dealt with that. Like, I think the difference with her and Sophia is while she was very sad over Sophia and all that very much hurt, she was kind of able to put some of that to rest. Because what happened with Sophia was something that really could not have been helped. So I think she was able to heal that a little bit better. And we definitely saw that come full circle in this episode. And I really appreciate the way they did that. With even where Henry was hiding with, you know, in that swamp or that river with the branches being around it. If you remember in season 2, that's where Sophia was hiding. It's the last time we saw her alive in season 2. She was hiding in a hole just like that near the farm. And then we never saw her alive again. But with Henry, Carol got there in time this time. She got to save her baby this time. And so even though, you know, obviously, you know, Henry's not her child, that symbolism, it wasn't missed on me. And I really appreciate they allowed Carol to actually do what she always wanted to do. This act in a way almost lets her finally turn that page in her head of, you know, what could I have done? Could I have done more? And I feel like a lot of what Carol's done as far as being so aggressive and so hardcore and the killings she's done and all those things have all been in the name of being stronger than she was when Sophia died. And I think that's, we know that conversation she had with Ezekiel at the end very much was her saying, I'm here now. I found my balance. Like, I am a badass. I'm going to continue to be a badass. I can make those hard calls when I need to, but I know now that I do have to be open and care and still allow myself to live because I am still breathing. And that kind of dovetails into Morgan and what's he's still going through. And, you know, I kind of talked about how Carol got a chance to kind of mentally get past the death of Sophia in the sense of she knew there really wasn't much she could have done. Morgan is completely on the other side of the spectrum in the sense of, you know, his son was killed by his undead mother because his poor, you know, because Morgan hadn't been able to deal with the fact that his wife had, you know, had been succumbed to this state. He wasn't able to put her down, which is what he needed to do for more reasons than one. And unfortunately, he lost his son because of that. So Morgan's always carried around this extra guilt, you know, one, because, you know, that's supposed to, you're supposed to. That's something he's been saying since season 3. Was it 3? Yeah, that we had clear. He feels like I should have done it. Like I should have put my wife down. And we saw him talking to Rick in that, back in that Clear episode where he's like, I should have done it. I should have been the one to kill her and I didn't. And now, you know, my son is dead and that's on me. And even though I think on some intellectual level, Morgan knows that's really not 100% true, he's still carrying that around. And that's why even when he had his time with Eastman and he started to live by the stick and wanted to be all about life, it still he hadn't healed that inner trauma about why the death of his son affected him the way it did. I mean, obviously losing a child is going to be devastating no matter what, but just having that cyclical moment of knowing that he died because of something that Morgan potentially could have avoided, that's something that's really been weighing heavily on him. So he's always got this guilt, this idea that he's got to kill all these walkers, as many as he can, because that's his penance for not doing it when it counted for someone he very, very much loved. So there's a great expression about, you know, that's about trauma and the way you deal with it. And basically it's the only way to deal with trauma is to keep going. You have to keep going through it and get through the worst of it. Because if you go and you get to a point where it's hard and then you retreat, it doesn't go away. It's still there. You're going to keep revisiting it over and over and over again. And that's what Morgan is going through. He just keeps hitting this guilt and this trauma around his son, and he doesn't deal with it and then go through it and just deal with it. So unfortunately, he ends up just coming back to this place of being barely within sanity. And he's getting to the point where Clear's happening, right? He almost didn't recognize Rick, right? That's bad. It's very sad. And I mean, seeing that first of all, again, Lenny James is he's such a boss. I love watching that man act. He's so talented. The amount of emotion he evokes just from his eyes, just from the way he I love him so much. And seeing him when he's having those conversations with Carol about, you know, saying, you know, I'm not as strong as you are, Carol. I don't know why I brought you back. That wasn't me. That wasn't the real me. You know, the real me is this broken man you see right now who feels like I'm still alive right now to pay this penance for my son's life. And again, at the end, when he's just sitting there after he saw that Henry was okay and that Henry was alive, he couldn't even really take joy in it because he's still so hurt. He had to go off someplace and he's just so alone right now. He's feeling so desolate and broken. And it broke my heart because I'm like, who does he have? He's just so broken right now and he just doesn't know how to deal with it, and it's so isolating and he's in so much pain, and it was just, oh, it was heartbreaking. I am gonna miss him when he leaves this show. I really, really am. But I feel like if Fear is going to use him better as far as giving him more time and more development, I very much support that because Lenny is amazing. On to the Negan and Jadis stuff. Really interesting episode in the sense of, you know, seeing this place that Jadis has been living in. Like, I had no idea where she was so damn I'm wondering if it's always been there. I'm assuming it must have. But did they all have apartments like this? Like, her place was sweet. It had hardwood floors. It looked like a tiny house. And she had all her stuff. It was all clean and pristine. She had a suitcase. Girl was ready, packed up and ready to leave. The helicopter thing. We saw the helicopter before the end of right before the mid-season hiatus. And my assumption was that the garbage people were operating it because we heard that they had solar power panels there and generators and some other things. So I was like, okay, maybe there's a whole thing going on with the garbage people we don't know. But it looks like it's not. It's somebody else. Yet somebody else who still has enough fuel and a helicopter pilot. That, and this far into the apocalypse, that's pretty crazy. So it looks like Jadis and her people were aware of them, but they never tried to get their attention before, potentially. She clearly was looking to try to get rescued or taken by whoever these people were. She had flares. And I'm not sure why she had Negan out as an offering. I don't know if she planned on killing Negan or just leaving him there to die slowly. It looked like she definitely was planning on burning Lucille, but I didn't 100% understand all of her plan outside of being picked up by whoever's in this helicopter. But I've got a lot of questions about who these people are. Does Jadis know them? Or does she just, or maybe is that who she was with before? Like, I mean, it looks like it must be something where they come around regularly because she knew, she was planning, she packed, she had everything was very much set up for her to come and, you know, be ready with these flares to signal to these guys. And they came right to where she was going to be waiting. And then when they didn't see a flare, they headed out. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a radio message, maybe there's somebody out there looking for people and Jadis has known about it, but maybe never wanted it before now because she had her people. There's a lot of questions there, and I'm hoping we'll get some more answers as the season goes on. You know, now we know that she could potentially be waiting for another pickup, but now Negan knows about it, so that's a little bit worrisome that he's aware of the fact that this helicopter people who are not Jadis's people exist. But he didn't push it, and I'm glad that he didn't try to like force her to come along or anything. That whole moment between them is very interesting because we don't often get to see Negan peel back the layers of his genitalia referencing, you know, bravado to actually be himself. And we got to find out the story behind Lucille finally, why it means so much to him, why it's always with him, why he called it Lucille. And that was it was a very human moment for him. You know, the thought that he actually might really lose this bat really got him upset. But now we know it's not just some weird attachment to a torture device. There is an emotional attachment there for him. We've only ever seen him be a little bit vulnerable and speak about his wife one other time, and that was with Father Gabriel. Very interesting. Those moments between them were very interesting, very well done, considering that the actress who plays Jadis is very good at that. She is she's very good at kind of having a sense about her. Like, she doesn't say a lot, but she doesn't need to. She very much had a presence this whole episode that was very telling of where her mind was at, how she was feeling. That moment where she just about hit him in the face with Lucille was amazing. I was not expecting it. It was great. But I like her. And now that she's kind of turned this page as far as, you know, who she thinks she is in this world, because she said to Negan, "You took who I am, you know, when you killed these people." I don't think she meant like I'm dead as a person. I think she just meant who that person was, that simple speech, black wearing emo chick that was with these people. That person died with all the other people that were there, and now she's got to reinvent herself again to survive going forward. So who that person is and who she'll align with is the question, but it seems like she's not Team Negan. Other big moment of the episode, here's the warning. If y'all aren't Richonne shippers, then I don't even know why you're watching this show, honestly. Just kidding. If you're not a shipper of Richonne, I'm about to gush for a good minute or two, so if you're not about that, I appreciate, I understand it, and I'll be fine if y'all have to tune out at this point. So, here we go. So, okay. On a serious note, before we start that, One of the things that I've always respected about Rick and Michonne and their relationship is that from the beginning, they've always been very good about figuring out what the other needs as far as just what they need to survive, so to speak. And so from the get-go, from when they first met in season 3 all the way up until now, Rick and Michonne have been very good at gauging when the other needs space, when the other needs a firm hand, when they need to hear something they don't want to hear, all those kinds of things. And that's why they've always worked so well together and why I absolutely adore them as a couple. It's not just because they're cute and they're very attractive people. It's because they actually show a really great example of a mature relationship between two people who really truly love each other for who they are and not who they want the other person to be. And that was always my issue with Rick and Lori, was that Lori didn't love Rick for who he was. She loved him for what she wanted him to be. And when he didn't fall into that nice little box in her mind, that's when they'd always have issues, right? So anyways, digressing back to my peeps. We saw the last episode where Michonne, she knows that Rick is in a place where he needs to grieve. And she knows this personally because she lost her own son very similarly to the way that Rick lost Carl. And so she knows that he's in a place where he needs to deal with it. But last episode, she was like, let's see. She kind of was testing the waters, you know, approaching him very tentatively, seeing if he would come to her with that, those feelings. And then when that didn't happen, now in this episode, and she saw he was about to pull out the murder coat. We all know what the murder coat means now. She was like, okay, no. Like, you are just in this ragey place and you're not going to come out of it until you actually stop and go, this is why I'm upset, and deal with it. So, she got her little mom voice in and she's like, you need to sit here and you need to read that letter and deal. She's like, I know what it's like to shut yourself down emotionally and try to run from your emotions. That's what I did for years. That's what I did with them walkers on chains, and it didn't work for me. And if it hadn't been for Andrea coming and kind of giving me a little bit of this and making me realize I couldn't be that way anymore, God knows where I'd be right now. So love it. I love that Michonne has always been, like, again, I've said it before, the moral of the story is Michonne is always right. Okay, Michonne is always right. I don't know when it's going to take Rick to figure out that his woman is always right. But anyway, he does need to do it, but he wasn't ready at that moment. He's not quite done with the murdery part of his rage. Like, we know this is the way that Rick's grieving process goes. Rage, then a little bit of crazy, as in the sense of like not really being all that with it, and then just breakdown. And then he's back to normal. So he had to get the rage part out of his system. I'd hoped he'd gotten most of it out with Negan, but apparently there was a little bit left. And I just feel like, again, this comes down for Rick just feeling like killing the Saviors was something he could control. Right? That's something like your son being bitten by a walker, doing the kindest of things, is something he couldn't have controlled. This is something he had some control over. So, he's at a point now where he can finally start to address the pain part of it. It was just great to see that, Michonne kind of stepped in and he kind of was listening to her. And then after he kind of went and did his last little act of anger, he kind of was like, okay, yeah, I do need to deal with this. Because I think he realized when it was all said and done, even when he came back, looking at, that one guy, the one savior that begged him not to kill everybody indiscriminately, I think he felt it at that point that, it didn't really make him feel better. I took from the way he looked when he came back and the fact that he was so quick to take the shower after, because you remember in the past when he would go on these rampages, he didn't want to wash, he didn't want to change, he just want to sit in it and kind of be in that place. The fact that he came and he felt the need to take the coat off, wash, get a clean shirt, like just put that away. To me, I read that as Rick being like, I don't feel better. Like, I thought killing these people would make me feel better, but it didn't, because that's not the answer. I really just need to read this letter and deal with my pain. And so I love that at the end. And then again, that beautiful moment at the end where he's sitting there and he's thinking, okay, because let's be real, if it had been Lori would have been like, I told you if you went out there, this was gonna make it. He was expecting the drama, and Michonne was just like, don't apologize to me, don't be sorry, like, I know you have to do this the way you need to do it. And just letting him know as usual that she's there for him, and just then the moment R.I.P. me. Then they have the ILUs, you guys. We've been waiting 3 seasons. 3 seasons! I mean, we knew it. Let's be real. As Richonne shippers, we know that Rick and Michonne love each other. We've been knew that they love each other. But to hear the words is so... I mean, hearing Carl say it to Michonne and vice versa, when he was dying, but still was so beautiful, because that's the reality, is even though people we know and we can feel love, there's just something very magical about there's a reason those words exist in every language on the planet. It's important for us to hear that from the people we care about, and it's the first time those two, on screen at the very least, have verbally expressed that they love each other. And my heart just swelled, and it broke, and then it swelled again. And it might break again. It was so beautiful. And it was so good for them, because I mean, I always knew that if they were gonna say their ILUs, it wasn't gonna be some notebooky type moment. It was gonna be something very real and gritty for the two of them, because that's just the way and the nature of their relationship. And it was perfect. So perfect. And I need to watch it about 600 times like I did their first kiss, because I have to. My world is complete. Like, Rick needed to say that, and we needed to hear it. And I'm glad he said it first. I'm sorry, I'm like that. I'm glad he's the one who said it first. It was great. It was a wonderful moment, and again, just reinforced that these two are the couple of the apocalypse. Like, they're so good together. And I love that they can lean on each other in this moment, and that Michonne gets to be, even though she's clearly still struggling a lot too, I love that they get to be strong for each other. That's what you need in a true partnership. So that's it, I'm done, but that was amazing. That was beautiful, and I'm glad we got that little moment, and hopefully we can close the book on having to keep bringing up gut-wrenching things about Carl, because that's hard. That's it. That was a lot for this episode, but they dealt with a lot of really deep issues here, but they dealt with them really well. What did you guys think of this episode? How do you feel about Rick's rampage? Like, really, I asked at the end of my reaction video, but I'm curious. How do you feel about it? Do you think it was the right thing to do? And do you agree with me that Rick's regretting it maybe a little bit, and that he's gonna definitely regret that in the future? Also, how do you feel about Carol's storyline, the whole thing with her, things coming full circle with her and Henry? Do you think this is smart for her to open her heart again, or do you think she should stay with her backup the way we've seen in the past? Please leave your comments below. Let's talk about this. Let's get through this, y'all. And if you like this video, guys, please click like, and if you wanna see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. Until next time, see ya.